ever watched Doctor Who, you wouldn't think it now, but at one point, Missy was a pretty hated master. Of course, like any portrayal of an iconic character like the Master or the Doctor, people will always have their favourites and also have their least favourites. I genuinely believe the majority of the hate directed towards Missy right at the beginning of her character was gross and unfair. And today's video we'll be diving into how the most hated master became the most loved. I do want to say most hated is a little bit clickbaity from me because it's definitely subjective depending on what actor you look at. Every actor who played the master at one point in time was probably the most hated due to it being a brand new performance. But I genuinely just want to dive into the unfair hate towards Missy and how she's a pretty good character. Unfortunately, right at the beginning of Michelle Gomez's amazing portrayal of Missy the Master, there was a lot of disgusting sexism towards her. This is pretty comparable to when Jodie Whittaker was announced as the 13th Doctor. A lot of fans and a lot of people just in general were outraged by the fact that the Master was now a woman. Not only is it utterly disgusting and just an awful thing to do, but it's also unfair on Michelle Gomez. You're not even giving the character a chance to flourish before you put them down immediately, just because she's a woman. I never got the hate towards Missy or the Doctor being a woman. They're Time Lords. Time Lords can realistically be anybody. Although a lot of this sexism was definitely a small part of the fandom and a very small part of people outside of it, I think it's worth noting because this small minority was very vocal. And none of this hate reflects on Missy's character whatsoever. It's just a preconceived notion about this character because she's a woman, and that's gross and has no place in a fandom like Doctor Who, and I'm so glad Missy became a fan favourite character. But I personally think I would be a little bit naive if I sat here and didn't mention that, because I feel like it's a pretty big factor. There were also just a lot of people during the time that were still hung up on John Simns' performance of the Master, just like a lot of people are hung up on Matt Smith's performance as the Doctor when Peter Capaldi became the Doctor. So by no means necessary is this a thing just isolated towards Michelle Gomez's Missy, but it is still an important factor in some of the initial hate. You're going to notice that a lot of the initial hate is pretty much unfounded.
Please try to keep up. Short for mistress. Well, couldn't very well keep calling myself the Master. Now, could I?
I want to take a really quick break from me discussing why people disliked Missy to give Missy's reveal props. Missy's reveal in Doctor Who is one of the best reveals in the show. It genuinely sends shivers down my spine every single time. It's so well executed, and Michelle Gomez's performance is just incredible. The consensus around Missy is that right at the beginning of when she was introduced, lots of people didn't really like her. The flirting with the Doctor and other stuff just made people unsettled. A lot of this criticism I don't personally understand, because I feel like the Master and the Doctor have always had a pretty flirty relationship, but I digress. People also didn't like that Missy was more of a whimsical master. Now I must say though, this definitely improved as Missy went on. People genuinely liked the more comedic side and the more emotionally driven side of the Master, which I'm so glad people do because I genuinely find Missy's portrayal of the Master to be one of the better ones. Other criticism for Missy came from the actual writing behind the character. Lots of people have said that Stephen Moffat just doesn't know how to write a female character, which a lot of people point at definitely in Missy's character. Lots of people also didn't like how the Master went from John Simns' adaptation to Missy. Her motivations, how she acted, was just completely different to John Simms. Some people didn't think it made much sense. There's also quite a large group of fans that don't feel like Missy feels like the Master. But what I love about Missy's character is that she doesn't feel just like that stereotypically evil master. But one thing that I noticed with all the criticism towards Missy and Michelle Gomez's performance and the writing is that a lot of people love Missy's arc and genuinely find it to be one of the best arcs in Peter Capaldis' run as the Doctor. People love the tragedy of Missy's character, that she wants to become better for herself, that she wants to improve from her past actions and be a good person. But it doesn't work out, and when she makes the stand against her former self to go and help the Doctor, she is gunned down. Missy, during her arc, feels like a fleshed out, genuine character. Some Masters performances genuinely just feel like, this guy is evil, he's the opposite of the Doctor, blah blah blah, where Missy has a genuine arc. Also, something I pointed out as a heavy criticism towards Missy right at the beginning was her whimsical nature in comparison towards the Master's more seriousness attitude, where by the end of her character, people genuinely loved the fact that she was comedy gold. I think this genuinely drives from the fact that people judge way too quickly on characters, especially within Doctor Who and people's performances, instead of waiting to give it a chance. People didn't like the comedy at the beginning, but it grew on them because the character also grew. I think Missy's comedy is some of the best bits, again, of Capaldis' era. Other masters had been funny and witty, but not like this. But Missy and Michelle Gomez always kept the pure essence of what made the master the master. There's also one piece of criticism I didn't mention earlier, which I wanted to hold back until towards the end of the video, because I genuinely don't get it. A lot of people had criticism that Missy didn't apparently have any connection with Peter Capaldis' doctor, which again, I really don't agree with.
Are you alright?
This can't happen. This is not what we agreed.
I think Michelle Gomez and Peter Capaldi bounce off each other beautifully, and their seriousness and emotional moments and their comedic moments are great and work very well together. I think it's diabolical that some people say they don't have chemistry and they don't have on-screen chemistry. I think it's ridiculous. They clearly do, and it works very well. I completely get if Michelle Gomez's Missy is not your favourite master or not your cup of tea, but I genuinely find a lot of the criticism towards Missy, especially at the beginning of her era, just pretty unfounded. I love the character of Missy. If you don't, that is completely fine and acceptable. Everyone's right to their own opinions, but I genuinely think some of the hate towards Missy is just unfair. Towards the middle of Michelle Gomez's run as Missy is when the love really started coming towards the character, and I'm so glad it did sooner rather than later, because Missy was just absolutely incredible. But please, feel free to comment down below your opinions on Missy. Did you like Michelle Gomez's adaptation of The Master? Did you dislike it, and why? Feel free to comment down below. But I've been your host Samuel, and I will catch you in the next YouTube video.